Welcome to a special live event here on Wales Online ahead of tomorrow's Pool A decider between Wales and Australia. 3 rugby correspondents with us today to dazzle us with their insights and take your questions. Simon Thomas here in Cardiff with his thoughts, and the 2 Ronnies down there at Twickenham, Gareth and Andy Howell. There they are. How are you doing, chaps?
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Andy, Gaz, obviously you've been down there all week. Atmosphere's building. 24 hours or so to go. Give us a flavour of what it's been like.
Well, the Wales camp are really relaxed. The last time I saw them this relaxed was during the 2011 World Cup after they qualified for the knockout stage of that tournament. And I get the same vibe from there. I think they've met their immediate goal, and now they're in an upbeat mood. They believe they're gathering momentum, and they go a lot further in the tournament.
Yeah, Gaz, I mean, we've had ghost stories and all sorts in the last week or so, haven't we, from the team hotel. How is it that Warren Gatland seems to get this tournament atmosphere amongst his squad?
I think it's the time he spends with them. He's had them all summer, so they've been used to each other. They're like a club side. He's always said, however long he spends with the team, they're always better in their preparations, and that's exactly it. And to qualify from the so-called group of death a week before, they don't have to win this game against Australia. Well, so they don't have to win it to qualify. You have to win it for other reasons. But it just sort of lifts the mood a little bit, and they look relaxed, and I think that's sort of translated onto the field.
Simon, you've been here in Cardiff with us doing all the hard work this week. The team announcement yesterday, a bit of a shock from Gatland's perspective, wasn't it? 6 changes. What did you make of all that?
Well, it's interesting, John. We were saying yesterday, weren't we, that I don't recall a public reaction to a team selection like this for a long time. It's been, overwhelmingly approving the reaction. People are really excited and positive about it. I think there's been this clamour, hasn't there, for quite a while for the dual open side option with Justin Tipperick coming in. I think people are glad to see that, given the chance. Although obviously, we're aware that Dan Lydiard does have the bang, and will come back next week, and he's been great for Wales in the tournament as well. George North in midfield, people seem excited by that, and there's just a general good feeling to it. And I think it's classic Gatland, isn't it? Just when you probably expect nothing unexpected, you get the unexpected, and no Gethin Jenkins either, and Gareth Anscombe in. It's a really interesting team.
Yeah,
John, I think though, John, that Gatland has realised that to beat Australia, you're going to have to score 30 points. And the team he's picked has given us our best opportunity of doing that. I think if you score less than 20 points against Australia, you're going to lose, because their attacking weapons are so powerful, they are likely to rack up points.
Yeah, looking at that team selection in a bit more detail, and Gareth, let's start with the front row. Paul James in for Gethin. Gatland was adamant that Gethin was being rested. Do you think there is an element, though, with obviously the problems Gethin in particular and the scrum have had, that Paul James has come in?
Yeah, Paul James is seen as more of a scrummager, rightly or wrongly, and he's been out since the first game against Uruguay. The whole front row has struggled. There's been Gethin Jenkins, Thomas Francis and Scott Baldwin in that scrum department in the games against sort of England and Fiji and Australia. So in terms of resting Gethin, he's a veteran now. He's played 2 games in 5 days, and he played a lot of those minutes against England and Fiji. So, he's looking at him for the quarter-final. Interesting, because I wonder if Michael Hooper had been playing, whether they would have made the same selection. Possibly they would have. I'm just thinking about Gethin's work in the breakdown and sort of being able to sort of complement Tipperick and Warburton. But yeah, Paul James has his chance now. He's seen as the best loose-edge scrummaging in that Welsh squad. It's up to him now to see if he can prove it or not.
Simon, in terms of Gethin and Dan Lydiard not in the team, is there any doubt in your mind that when it comes to a quarter-final game, they will be back in the team?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? If Wales win with this lineup, then what does Warren Gatland do? If the scrum is much more solid with Paul James there, and if the breakdown goes well and Wales pose an attacking threat through having Justin Tipperick in those wider channels, and they win the game, well, you know what's going to happen, and we're all going to be clamouring for those players to be retained. I think, generally, based on what you know of Gatland and also what he's said, you would expect Gethin and Dan Lydiard, both players hugely sort of appreciated by the Welsh management, would come in. But as I say, if they win with this side, it's a nice problem to have, though, isn't it? Really, a nice headache to be faced with.
John, Gatland's not prepared to ditch anybody. He's proved to have his record in the past. I think if Wales scrummage well in this game, that he might not have an alternative. He would have to keep the front row intact for their next match. If Wales end up losing the game, and then play South Africa, I've got no doubt Dan Lydiate will be back to face South Africa, because you will need a bigger guy in the back row then with destructive qualities. What'll be interesting if Wales win this match and end up facing Scotland or Japan, do you bring Lydiate back and try and smash him out the way through size, or do you have a quick back row with Warburton and Tipridge both in it?
Gaz, in terms of the backline then, a big old shuffle there. George North starting at centre. What do you make of that? And then that's obviously meant Anscombe at full-back with Liam moving to the wing.
Well, I mean, it seems exciting bringing in George North in the midfield. I mean, this reshuffle's happened, and what you've got now is 3 guys, well, maybe 2 guys who don't play in their sort of preferred position. You've got Liam Williams, who was a full-back playing on the wing. You've got Gareth Anscombe, who's an outside half playing at full-back, although he has played a lot at full-back back home in New Zealand. And you've got George North coming into the centre. It's certainly going to be a mouth-watering sort of midfield battle against the sort of contrasting talents of Gito and Kouadrani, who's also, he's 6'5", 16 stone centre. So George North will offer attacking elements in that. The only concern with George North will be the defensive issue, because he hasn't played in that position an awful lot, and that it is a key area in the defence that Wales employ. So George North's got a big role to play on Saturday, sort of leading that defence sort of inwards. Just the thing on Liam Williams, he's back. The only slight issue I have with it, is I'd love to see Liam Williams being played at full-back, because that's where he does his most damage. But due to their injuries and them going down this tack, they haven't got any other choice, because they just haven't got any other wings available. So he has to play on the wing. Maybe he'll switch to full-back later in the game.
John, what Australia will do, as they and other Southern Hemisphere teams have done in the past, is they will target the Dan Biggar channel, even though Biggar's a really willing and committed tackler. They've had success in the past by blasting him out the way, and they will also target George North. North they see as a player who gets out of position in defence, and they can get men outside him. They've done it in the past, so I have no doubt that they will be attacking those 2 areas. Plus they will look to put a lot of pressure on Alex Cuthbert by running at him and in the air as well. As we all know, Cuthbert is short of form and in desperate need of a huge game.
How do you solve that Alex Cuthbert issue, Simon? I mean, rarely have we seen a player in recent times so devoid of confidence, such a shadow of what he was just a couple of years ago.
And also, if you think about it, twice this year he's lost his place. He lost his place to Liam Williams on the wing in the Six Nations, and for that England game, Alan Amos was selected ahead of him. So yeah, it's difficult. He's short of form and short of confidence. You think with a player like him, if he had that game where things clicked, a try came his way, produced a good finish, what you want to see is Cuthbert playing the way he did in South Africa in 2014 in the summer, where he was arguably our best player in the second test, where they should have won. What you saw there was him coming off angles. Remember the way he used to be so devastating, coming off those short balls off Dan Biggar in midfield, and the finishing that he brought in the 2012 and 2013 season. He's got the ability to be an effective strike runner, but when your confidence drains, you probably don't go looking for the ball quite so much. He just needs something good to happen for him early in that game. But I agree with Andy. I think there is an element that he's probably going to be targeted under the cross kicks. He's perhaps not the best in terms of the leap on the cross, but despite his height, he just needs something to fall his way, because at the moment things that he's touching aren't working out for him, and we really need him to have a big game, because we are so short on the wing at the moment.
Andy, tell me about Gareth Anscombe then. How good is he? I suppose if you don't watch the Cardiff Blues, particularly Welsh fans may not have that much of an idea.
Well, John, this is the unknown, is whether he can step up to this level. He started Super 15 for the Chiefs, won the title. Looks an excellent player at outside half as well as fullback, but of course he's never been tested in this environment. And I think there will be some questions about his defence as well, his tackling and expertise under the eye ball. I mean, he's a key player. If he comes off for Wales, could make a huge impact. If he doesn't take his chance, Wales might be searching for another fullback on their next game. But he reminds me a bit of a guy called Jesse Mogg, starred for the Brumbies in the Super 15, looked a star in the making, and hasn't been able to hack it at international level. The question is, can Anscombe hack it?
What's the answer to that question, Gareth?
Well, I suppose we'll see on Saturday. I mean, he's got it's a big-ass first test start at fullback in a game of this magnitude. We haven't seen an awful lot of him because he's been injured quite a bit, and he's played most of the rugby a fly out behind, a struggling pack last season. There's still a lot of questions with Gareth Anscombe, and people are yet to be convinced. But what better way to convince them tomorrow than putting in an excellent display against Australia?
What would interest me, John, with him is how often he turns up at first receiver, because I think him and Dan Bigger in attack might well share the workload. And Anscombe has got an extra edge to his game if that happens, because like Bernard Foley, Anscombe is very quick, light on his feet, and capable of making a break.
And he did play very well against Ireland when he came on as a replacement at the beginning of August, albeit in a warm-up game, but he had 30 minutes and he looked very organised, and his distribution was excellent. So yeah, maybe that first receiver will be seen as an attacking sort of threat, given maybe even outside Bigger, second as an inside centre sometimes. So we'll have to wait and see for that.
Yeah, indeed. Simon, a question here about the back row battle, so often the key to an international match. What do you make of that? What difference will Michael Hooper's suspension make to what we've seen from Australia so far, particularly against England, where they totally dominated that area?
Yes, it's interesting, John. I've been talking to a few of my Australian colleagues, about Sean McMahon, who's the guy who's coming in at number 7. Is he kind of a like for like? Because obviously last week there was so much talk about the fact that Australia have gone for the dual open side option with Cooper and Pocock, and now in a sense Wales have gone for, they've gone for the same thing, and Wales going for Warburton and Tipuric has now coincided with one of the specialist 7s for Australia being absent, Cooper suspended. So what kind of player is McMahon? The impression I'm getting is he's probably a little bit more of a 6 by nature. He's a dynamic ball carrier, dynamic tackler, quite abrasive. So in that sense, Wales will really have the 2 7s. But then when you look at the way Michael Hooper played last week against England, he tends to be the one making the tackles, and it was Pocock who was the man swooping on the ball, winning the turnovers, winning the penalties. So in that aspect, you could see McMahon being quite a like-for-like replacement as the man putting the people on the deck in order for Pocock to pounce. And again, with Wales, you're going to have this kind of dual pincer movement with Tipuric and Warburton. Obviously, no Gethin Jenkins, so that's counterbalanced to an extent. But you would imagine, certainly Warburton can do that chop tackle role at 6, which enables Tipuric to get on the ball. And the other man I think we've got to mention in the back row, personally, I think is arguably Wales' best player in the tournament so far, is Taluki Faletau. When you think of the heroics he has performed, a lot of the time on a retreating scrum, just think of that scrum, that last scrum against England, we were hurtling back and he picks it up and goes forward. He's been sensational. It's a really dynamic, athletic back row Wales have got. I just think it's a mouth-watering prospect.
Yeah, Simon's forgot one guy in that equation, when he mentioned the 6, because one of Australia's best players is their blindside flanker, Scott Fardy. It's absolutely brilliant at the line out as a real workhorse around the pitch. Where I think the Aussies will miss Hooper is his work in defence. They use him, they take him out of the line out defensively, standing him in midfield, and he's the guy who does a lot of their tackling, and he does a lot of carrying to put him on the front foot in attack. So I think they will miss his physical presence.
Tell me about the genius of David Pocock then, Andy. I know you did a piece on the other day. Is he head and shoulders above your Warburtons in terms of that area of the game?
He's certainly ahead as far as I'm concerned. He's the best back row forward in the world over the ball, and a lot of that comes from his game intelligence. He reads the game so well. He's thinking ahead of the game, and he reminds me of a big cat. He only strikes when he knows he's going to get the kill. He stands off. If he doesn't think he's going to win the ball at the breakdown, he just stands. He wanders to the next breakdown, and if the opposition make a mistake, he's straight in there, takes it by the jugular, and he either wins a turnover or he wins a penalty. He's a fantastic player, but he's also an all-round package because he's a really strong ball carrier, and of course his physique. He's short, he's squat, and he's so powerful. Legs like tree trunks. Once he's on that ball, he's virtually immovable.
Andy, can I ask you, how do you then negate Pocock's threat?
You've got to get there first. That's why I think Tipuric is in the team. I think the job for what Warburton alluded to yesterday was Tipric's job is to get there first, make the tackle, and Warburton to be quickly in support and in on the ball before Pocock. Of course, Pocock has been helped recently by the Australia scrum, and he's working off front foot ball. Wales have been working on the back foot. This is why Wales got to get their scrum right to give Tipuric and Warburton a chance this weekend. Wales got to be going forward, which makes it harder for Pocock to get to the ball before our guys.
Yeah, Gareth, let's try and solve the scrum issue then. Why is it that Australia's scrum, which has historically been so poor, has been so good in this tournament, and why are Wales struggling so badly in that area?
Australia first, simple. Mario Ledesma's come in, Argentinian, front row. He's just transformed their scrum. He's found actually 4 props who can scrummage. It's not just the starting 2. If you look last week, Australia were dominating that last 10 minutes in the scrum, and it was when the replacements came on. He found guys who can scrummage, and he's provided the technical and the powerful know-how how to do it. With regards to Wales, I think Samson Lee's coming back in now. You've got to remember about Samson Lee. A, he's still a young man, and B, 6 months ago, back in March, he ruptured his Achilles. That was obviously such a powerful implement for a prop. So he's coming back. He then damaged his calf against Uruguay, so they brought him back quite slowly with replacement appearance against Fiji and England, where he has struggled when he came on in the scrum. He hasn't been dominant. But they're just hoping now that he'd have enough game time or enough power to actually where he was before, because he came in and he replaced Adam Jones on the sort of start in 2014. He did it pretty seamlessly. Wales had this new tight head, and he was one of their most important players. And this scrum has shown why he is one of the most important players. And for a guy to come back from an Achilles injury like that, it will take time. Unfortunately, with the World Cup, you haven't got time. On the other side, you've got Paul James coming in. Gethin with the scrum. He's always been the sort of love-hate relationship, it seems to have been the part. He's always been brilliant around the field with maybe question marks about his scrummaging. Now Paul James comes in, as he did against Australia last November. They've given him the number 1 jersey, and he's got a role to play. Now, they've got Wales. They've got to, as Andy says, they've got to have that sort of parity at least and dominance, because if they can get that, then Wales can match Australia.
John,
Yeah.
as you know, I picked Brian Moore's brains on this week about the scrummaging and what Wales needed to do to counteract Australia, because he's written extensively about the Australian scrum. And it was very interesting what he said. He picked out a couple of things in particular from the last game where they got on top against England, and something he's Wales is having to counter. Firstly, it's the slight step to the left before engagement, and then it's the fact that they angle via Kepu, who's the tight head. He angles across, puts pressure on. I think the idea last week was there was so much talk, if you remember, about Joe Marler and the angle in which he was scrimmaging. I think the impression was that they looked to almost go across away from Marler and leave him sticking out like a sore thumb. Now the question is, that was Ledesma's tactic last week. It worked really well. Got a stack of penalties. They went forward. What will he have up his sleeve for Wales? He'd have looked at Wales. He'd have looked at the scrummaging. And I think in Scott Seo, the loose head, he's uncovered a real gem. He's been such a force on the loose head for Australia. I think Andy may remember he came to the fore when the Brumbies beat the Lions 2 years ago. He is a real menace. We've got 2 young tight heads, Samson starting and Thomas. As we know, Gats has said he doesn't expect props to be any good until for about 6 years, into the late 20s. There's a massive responsibility on the broad shoulders of Samson Lee this weekend. Let's just hope he can step up, because it's a real test. And as I say, Ledesma will have some plan. You know that.
John, I don't know if Ledesma needs a plan. I think how bad Wales have been at the scrum. I think all Australia need to do is stay square and scrummage straight. Simon's right about Scott Seo. He's been fantastic. He's only just turned 23. He was absolutely fantastic for the Brumbies in this year's Super 15, and it's only during the Rugby Championship against New Zealand in the Rugby Championship decider that Michael Checker gave him his head, and I think Seo has solved their problems. And Stephen Moore at hooker, he's always been actually a capable scrummager, so has Keppel. What they needed was a loose head, and now they found it.
What difference does the referee make, Gaz, this week maybe compared to the last couple of weeks?
Craig Zuber, I don't know. They want to get on the right side of him quite quickly, especially on the scrum and the breakdown. He will. They'll want the sort of the contest, because Garth says England didn't get on the right side of him, especially in that second half of the breakdown. Wales managed to, and that was key in the last quarter. Zuber.
I tell you what's interesting, John, with Zuber, that really this is a match where there's not a home side on the pitch. There's 2 neutral teams, so let's see how he referees it, because he has had a history in the past, in my opinion, of favouring the team with the home advantage. He's an hot-and-cold referee. Some games he can be whistle happy and ruin a game like he did a couple of years ago, Scotland against Wales, one of the worst international matches you've ever seen, when he didn't stop blowing his whistle. Other times he's quite liberal in his interpretations, so you could have a good team. He could have a huge bearing on a match. I must say he's not one of my favourite referees, and I hope he doesn't spoil what I think could be a thriller if he's more liberal on the whistle.
I hope he's not watching, Andy, after that.
I hope he is.
Simon, let's come to you with a question then, moving away from the technicalities of the scrum. Joe Warren says there's been a lot of discussion about Sam Burgess not being ready for the centre position and how it takes years to understand how to play it. However, nobody seems to be having this debate about George North. Why are we not having that debate?
Well, there's two things there. I mean, George North has got over 50 caps under his belt in rugby union. Sam Burgess has got less than a season of rugby union, and a lot of that season we were being told by Bath they didn't see him as a centre, they saw him as a back row forward. So he was always going to be at a massive disadvantage. And, you know, he's taken a lot of flack, but in a way you feel the flack is probably more directed at Stuart Lancaster and Andy Fowle for having employed him and asking him to do something that his experience in the game just wasn't up to. So I think it's a difference. North has so much, you know, international experience now. Yes, he's played the vast majority of on the wing, but this is something they've dabbled with quite a few times, John. You know, in training they've worked today. He's played there in 2 or 3 games for Wales. I think that it's right what the lads say. That 13 role is such a tricky one in terms of the defensive organisation. Jonathan Davis turned it into an art form where he controlled the defensive line. Scott Williams really worked on it. It was just getting there. And it was looking really good. Now we've tried Tyler Morgan there. Now we're going George North. It's a big ask for George, but I mean, he is, I think, comfortable in that role, and certainly from an attacking perspective, you know, he's going to get his hands on the ball more often, and that's what we've always said with George North, isn't it? Get the ball in his hands because he's such a weapon.
John, George North has actually got a lot of experience at centre. He played much of his H grade rugby at number 13. He's also played quite regularly for Northampton in the Rugby Premiership. And I think we need to see the best of George North because we haven't for a long time. And maybe by putting him in the centre, we'll give him that chance to get his hands on the ball a bit more and recover, and I think regain his confidence. Because don't forget, he was out with his concussions the back end of last season, and I don't think he's psychologically he's quite over that yet. I think he's another, like Cuthbert, who needs a big performance.
Yeah, we'll come to predictions in a few minutes to finish, guys. But Gaz, obviously Wales, it's 10 in a row now. We haven't beaten Australia. Arguably, this Australia side is better than any of those Australian sides we've faced during that period. Do we have any chance?
They have a chance. Australia will be favourites. Based on that performance last week against England, it was outstanding. And even when they had a wobbly patch in between maybe 50, 60 minutes, they had the composure to recover and close the game out and end up winning the game by 20 points. Yeah, Australia are favourites. They've won the Rugby Championship. They've got a great coach. They're settled. They've only had to make a couple of changes. They've still got runners like Falau, Kuwadrani, Gitto, and Foley, sort of dictating events, and they've now got a scrum, as we've discussed. They've now got a forward platform, which makes them even more dangerous. Given all that, you think you wouldn't give them much hope. But Wales have proved over the last 2 months that they can overcome all sorts of hurdles. Winning in England when their backline was ravaged, beating Fiji 5 days later when they were often on the back foot. Last couple of, Wales, Sean Edwards made a point at the press conference today, Wales have only lost one in their last 10. People keep asking him, in the 10 games, the one since they lost to England in Cardiff, and this is another day. He said the past games against Australia, a lot of them were close. Wales players don't know how to beat the Wallabies in a red jersey, but he said Saturday's another day, and we've had our time together, so they believe that they can win. That's the most important thing.
Simon, they were obviously very good against England. What weaknesses, though, did you spot in that match, or have you spotted throughout the tournament from an Australian perspective?
Well, obviously, defensively, they were a little bit at fault. I think it was Watson's try, wasn't it, for England? They were found wanting a little in the outside channel there. There haven't been too many frailties because, as I say, the scrum is an obvious strength. It's interesting they made a bit of a change in the lineup with Dean Munn coming in. They've gone from a slightly more physical second row there. They've been pretty good, John. I mean, if you look, they won the Rugby Championship. Played really good rugby and that improved as that went along. Perhaps go back to the Bledisloe Cup decider where New Zealand gained revenge and beat them. New Zealand played at a huge tempo and a huge physicality in that game, and a lot of driving around the fringes, taking them on with pick and go. I could see Wales perhaps trying to do that. I don't know what Andy thinks about this. We talked about Scott Vardy, who was a big role to play in that area. But Wales have played quite a bit of that in this World Cup. Big men like Bradley Davis, Charters now comes in and does that role, picking and going, at the guts of it, leading the cups to spaces, and let's not forget what Wales have got around that fringe. They've got a real new predator in Gareth Davis. who stepped into that Reece Webb role really well, 4 tries in this tournament, and if there's any chink in the defensive arm against the Wallabies, he will look to target it. So I think that close-in area there, that could be an area where we really prosper.
Yeah, just in response to your question there, I think that that Bledisloe Cup decider was a non-event because Michael Checker experimented in that match, and guess who didn't start for the Wallabies? David Pocock. And when he plays, the results are much better. Australia have been a coming force for the last year since Checker took over. New Zealand got a lot of old guard players, same with South Africa. Australia won both previous World Cup finals on British soil, could well be their time again. Wales are going to have to be at their absolute best to win this match. I think it could be really close. I think it could be a hell of a lot of points and one of the best games of the tournament.
Okay, before we do predictions, a couple of quick questions then, since we got them here. One from Rodri. Simon, I don't know if you want this one. How do you reckon Wales will cope with Foley and Gitto acting as 2 10s?
I think that's a big test because you look at the way that they pulled the strings against England. Foley absolutely tormented them, sliced through for 2 tries. He's a real boxer tricks. He's got quick hands, quick feet, quick brain. And then alongside him, you've got the perfect foil in Gitto. So experienced, so classy, knows when to take the pressure off people around him. And, finished off with that lovely try against England. I think, to be honest, I think we're going to run at them and run at them hard early on. Look to get the likes of Roberts and North and assorted forward carriers hitting those 2. Let's not forget Gitto took a heavy blow, didn't he, off Owen Farrell in the last game. Going to maybe some sore ribs. Foley's not the biggest man. I think we will look to target them physically and maybe try to put them out their stride that way. But certainly, if those 2 start to pull the strings, it's going to be a long day in the West London office for Wales. It really is.
Okay, Gareth, a very important one for you from Richie Burns. Do you think England can beat Uruguay?
Come off the fence on this one.
Brilliant. I think England will consolidate 3rd place in the group with a bonus point victory over the South American minnows.
There we go. Very good. Very good. Right, let's have the predictions then to finish. Andy, we'll start with you.
It'll be quite close, but Australia will win. Because I think they've got too much firepower, and they've always got to come off the bench one of the best players in the world in Matt Tamua.
Okay, Gareth, we won't finish with you. Go on.
I predicted that England would beat Wales. Wales won. I predicted that England would beat Australia. Australia won. So I'm going to predict that Australia will beat Wales, and hopefully my predictions will prove false again.
Okay, and Simon, finish it off.
As you'll remember, John, I predicted a 4-point win for Wales against England. They won by 3 points. I hope this time I'm going to be totally wrong because I'm going to go for an Australia win by 6 points. I just think logically, looking at the way the 2 teams have performed overall, they do look a slightly stronger side. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a hugely committed contest, but Australia by 6.
Okay, chaps, thanks for your time. Thanks for your predictions. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for all your questions. Plenty of build-up over the next 24 hours. And, of course, we will have all the action live tomorrow from 4:45. See you then.